It's good to have you back again. Today we're going to read a very exciting letter about doubt. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe writes the following in response to a letter about this topic. Blessing and greeting. I received your letter with some delay. In it, you write about the uncertainty you feel regarding commitment to Judaism, inasmuch as you think that life in accordance to the Torah and mitzvot is restrictive and limits the individual and personal creativity, particularly in the area of thinking and choosing for himself, so that it is hard to reconcile such commitment to Judaism with the idea of personal freedom. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe addresses a question that comes to many of us about religion versus personal freedom, and how a person can actually express oneself by still being connected and adhering to the commandments of the Torah that God laid out for us. So some people may think that being religious, living by the laws that are laid out in the Torah can restrict oneself and can actually make you less happy because you're having to sacrifice your own personal freedom. So Lubavitcher Rebbe in this letter will address that and obviously dispel this false idea. Frankly, this attitude, so the Rebbe continues, frankly, this attitude is somewhat surprising coming from a thinking person. I suppose the difficulty here is due to the superficial understanding of the meaning of the acceptance of the yoke of the Torah and mitzvah, because the word yoke suggests restrictiveness. So, as you know, yoke is what you put on an animal to restrict them and restrain them. And so there's an expression, the yoke of the Torah, meaning that we are to do the will of God without question. And that is what accepting the yoke of the Torah is. So the Rebbe continues, in truth, however, there are many things in daily life which a person accepts and follows without question, even if he or she is a highly gifted intellectual with a searching bent of mind. Since you attend college and have studied science, you surely know that one does not go about starting everything in physics and technology from the beginning by verifying everything through personal research and experimentation. For example, a person will board a plane without first having researched aerodynamics to verify that it is safe to fly in it and that it will bring one to one's destination at approximately the scheduled time. Or take an example from the area of physical health. There are well-established things which are useful or harmful to one's health. A person will not go about trying to verify the efficacy of a particular drug through personal experimentation. Even if a person has a very strong inclination to do some research and experimentation, will surely choose areas which have not been previously research. This generally accepted attitude is quite understandable and logical, for inasmuch as experts have already researched these areas and determined what is good and what is harmful to physical health, or have established the methods as to further technical advancements, it would be, at best, a waste of time to go over all those experiments from the beginning. Additionally, there is no assurance that one may not make some error and arrive at the wrong conclusions with disastrous effects, as experience has shown in some cases. What has been said above in regard to physical health is also true in regard to spiritual health, and how the soul can attain perfection and fulfillment. All the more so since spiritual health is generally related to physical health, particularly as far as a Jew is concerned. Now, the creator of man, who is also the creator and master of the whole world, surely has the best qualifications that might be expected of any authority to know what is good for man and for the world in which he lives. In his goodness, God has already provided us with complete and final results, having put us on notice that if a person will conduct his daily life in a certain way, then he will certainly have a healthy soul and a healthy body, and it will be good for him both in this world and in the world to come. God has also left some areas where a person can carry on in his own experimentation and other matters which do not interfere with the rules laid down by him. So the Rebbe is basically using the analogy of someone who tries to question everything in life to basically see if they should do it or not. And clearly, in our daily life, we do not question everything. There's many things laid out by society, whether the areas of science or even just generally accepted rules of life, that we don't question. And we know that those are good things for us to do because that's how it's been done for thousands of years, and we don't question it. So why should we question what is coming from the infinite wisdom of the Creator? The Creator has laid out a guide for life through the Torah, and if we follow it, then we will have complete harmony and feel completely fulfilled in our lives. So just like it's ridiculous to try to figure out if every medicine you take, if you break it down to all the ingredients, is good for you, and it would be too much time spent to try to do that in every single thing. The same thing is the idea of questioning everything in religion is not really needed, because God is infinitely good, and certainly He only wants good for us. So, because of that, we should just trust God and do all the commandments that He's laid out for us. So anyway, the Rebbe continues. In other words, it is quite certain that if a human being lived long enough and had the necessary capacities to make all sorts of experimentation without distraction, interference, and without error, he would undoubtedly arrive at the same conclusions which we already find in the Torah, which God has given us, namely the need to observe Shabbat, to eat kosher food, etc. But as mentioned above, God in His infinite goodness, and it is in the nature of the good to do good, wished to save us all the trouble, as well as the possibility that we may make an error, and He has already given us the results beforehand for the benefit of both the person who has the inclination and capacity to search, as well as those who do not. So the Rebbe says that God has already done all that hard work for us. If we just follow the manual of laid out in the Torah, then it will be a beautiful life for us. And there's no need for us to try to go by trial and error to try to find that out. So the Rebbe continues, the expression yoke in relation to accepting the Torah and mitzvah in daily life is to be understood in the sense that human nature makes it necessary to act on imperatives. For human nature and the evil inclination are such that an individual might easily succumb to temptation. Temptation is sweet at the beginning, but bitter in the end. But human nature is such that an individual may disregard the bitter consequences because of the initial gratification. We see, for example, that children are often, and very often also adults, may be warned that overindulgence in certain foods would be harmful to them and make them sick later, to the point that they may not even be able to eat anything at all. Yet they may nevertheless reject all the restraint to gratify their immediate appetite or passion. In a like manner, God has given us the yoke of the Torah and mitzvot, the commandments, and all the boundaries that are laid out in what a human being should do and not, telling us that whether one understands them or not, or whatever the temptation may be, one must carry out God's commandments unquestionably. So this is a very important foundation in living life according to the Torah. That even if there's a voice in the back of your head that is telling you, no, don't do this. I want to eat cake. I want to sleep. I don't want to pray. I don't want to eat this kosher food. I want to watch TV on the Sabbath. Even despite this gnawing temptation that is trying to bubble into your consciousness, you're to disregard it and to do the will of God unquestionably, because ultimately, by doing that, you will come to understand why these things are so great for you. And that's why I always say, people who tell me that when I meet people who don't keep the Sabbath, I tell them that it's not until you really do it that you'll really feel the beauty of the Sabbath and how it recharges your soul and how you feel so renewed and able to take on the world after this 24 hours of being fully immersed in spiritual connection to God and checking out from the regular rat race of the world. That's what the Sabbath is. But until you do it, you won't know. So this is why you have to overcome your logical arguments that may be there and just do what God has asked. And if you follow it, you will find a harmony between your mind, your soul, and physically, and it will all be good. So the Rebbe continues with last point. There's a further point, and this is the most essential aspect of the concept of the yoke of the Torah and mitzvot. It is that although the Torah and mitzvot have been given for the benefit of man, both in this life and the eternal life, there is infinitely greater quality with which God has infused the Torah and mitzvot. This is the quality of uniting man with God, the created with the creator, who would otherwise have nothing in common. By giving man a set of mitzvot to carry out in his daily life, God has made it possible for man to attach himself to his creator and to overcome the limitations of a limited being living in a limited world. The Torah and mitzvot are the bridge spanning the infinity that separates the creator from the created, and enables the human being to rise and attach himself to godliness. Of course, this quality can be attained only if the person observes the Torah and mitzvot, not because of the reward that goes with it for the body or the soul, or for both, but purely because they are the will and command of the Holy One, blessed be He. And just to interject about what the Rebbe just said, a very powerful point, is that by doing the will of God, you become one with God. Because when you learn Torah and when you do the commandments, you are connected with the wisdom of the infinite wisdom of God. You're literally one with God. And this is the greatest reward of them all, that you're able to be one with God. And then you have a certain harmony that you just can't attain in any other way if you try to have some kind of man-made approach to life. It is also for this reason, so the Rebbe continues, it is also for this reason that the text of the blessing which a Jew makes before fulfilling a mitzvah does not mention the utility of the mitzvah. It doesn't talk about the benefits of doing fulfilling the certain commandment, but rather it talks about the fact that He has sanctified us with His commandments and commanded us. So the whole idea is that by joining with the mitzvah, you join with God, and you're doing the will of God, and you're becoming one with God. Finally, I would like to say that the fact that you have had some doubts and uncertainties should not discourage you at all. Indeed, the Torah desires a person to utilize all his capacities, including his mind and intelligence, in the search of God, as long as the approach is right, namely the acceptance of the Torah and mitzvot first. It is quite natural and even desirable that one should understand everything that is within one's mental grasp. In your case, this is of additional significance because you have an opportunity to influence and benefit other young people who have the same frame of mind as you. So the Rebbe here is saying that it's okay for you to have questions. It's okay for you to try to understand as much as possible about why we do certain commandments and why we have certain prohibitions. But ultimately, there are going to be many things that are beyond our understanding when we are going in the path of God, because God is infinite, and using our mental capacities that are limited, we cannot comprehend everything. And the whole idea is that we still accept everything in the Torah, and we do everything first, and we don't ask questions, and hopefully we will come to understand some things. But this is not the objective of having God in your life. The objective is not to understand everything, but just to do. And by doing, you will come to understand, in some capacity, Why is it that you are to do it? And again, this is why the action is what is the essence of what we have to do. That we have to act and then ask questions later. This is an essential part of being able to come close to God. That we empty our mind so that God can enter into us. That's how you are able to go beyond the limits of your mind. So the Rebbe concludes, much more can be said in connection with such a profound subject, but I trust that the above lines, the limited quantity of sufficient content to illuminate the true aspects of this matter. Besides, should you wish to discuss these matters further, you surely have friends who will be glad to enlighten you. And what the Rebbe is saying, friends, he's talking about people who are obviously on the path of God. So that is what you should do. And we said it previously, that you should always acquire for yourself a teacher, a rabbi, a spiritual teacher who can guide you through whatever questions you have. But don't let the questions paralyze you or cause you to only selectively do certain things in the Torah. The idea is that we keep the entire Torah, not just what makes sense to us. And if we do that, this is how we truly become one with God and truly become one with ourselves and have a full harmony and bliss between in all aspects of our lives, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So may it all be good for all of us. And until the next time, be well. Looking forward to seeing you all again.